Hello mga bata! Kamusta kayo? Welcome sa ating Sunday School. Ako si Teacher Ces, ang inyong magiging teacher. Pagkatapos natin mapag-aralan ang ating lesson last week about sa Divided Kingdom, ngayon naman mapag-aaralan natin ang naging buhay ni Elijah. Tingnan natin kung ano ang kanyang naging story at kung paano siya sumunod sa Panginoon. Bago yan, tayo muna ay manalangin. Panginoon Diyos, marami pong salamat sa pagkakataong ito na magkaroon po kami ng Sunday School upang mapag-aralan po ang inyong mga salita. Nawa ang mga naging example po sa inyong salita, magaya po namin ito at ma-share po namin ito sa ibang tao, sa aming pamilya at sa aming mga kaibigan. Ito po ang aming dalangin sa pangalan ni Jesus. Amen. Tara mga bata, sabayin niyo akong kantahin ang With Christ in My Vessel. Christ in my vessel, I can smile at the storm, smile at the storm, smile at the storm. With Christ in my vessel, I can smile at the storm until He takes me home. Sailing, I'm sailing home, sailing, I'm sailing home. With Christ in my vessel, I can smile at the storm until He takes me home.
When Ahab became king of Israel, he did more evil than all the kings before him. King Ahab not only turned away from God to worship Baal, but encouraged the whole nation to do the same. People who refused to worship Baal were persecuted or driven out of the country. Every prophet of God who could be found was put to death. Suddenly, one day the king heard a voice burst out like a thunderclap, and a stranger stood before him. As the Lord God of Israel lives, there will not be dew or rain until I say so. Elijah the prophet had arrived with a message from the Lord. People stood in stunned silence as Elijah turned and left. A prophet of God had not been heard for a long time, but they paid little attention to Elijah or God's warning. For 3 years no rain fell in the land of Israel. The grass disappeared from the hills. The cattle grew lean, nothing grew in the field, and people had less and less to eat. In every home, people were suffering from hunger. Unless rain fell soon, there will be no food at all. They began to think about Elijah's warning. When the king saw the land turning to desert and his animals dying of hunger, he sent messengers to find Elijah. They all returned with the same response: Elijah is nowhere to be found. The king sent messengers to every city and country around. The messengers began to fear for their lives as the king became furious at their failure to find the prophet. God then spoke to Elijah. Go and show yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the earth. Elijah sent off and saw Obadiah, the king's servant. The prophet said, Go and tell your Ahab that Elijah has returned. Obadiah hurried back to the king. King Ahab listened to Obadiah's report and set off to find Elijah. Elijah was not afraid and waited calmly for the king to arrive. The king cried angrily, Are you the one who was being troubled, Israel? Elijah answered, I am not troubling Israel. You are. You have disobeyed the commandments of the Lord. You have worshipped the false god Baal. Ahab could not answer the prophet of God. The king listened as Elijah told him gathered all the people of Israel and all the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. Ahab agreed. From every corner of the kingdom, people came to Mount Carmel, wondering what was going to happen. Elijah wanted to let the people see that the Lord God had overwhelming power. How long will you waver between two opinions? Elijah asked. If the Lord is God, follow Him. If Baal is God, then follow Him. The people listened but would not reply. Elijah proclaimed, I am a lone prophet of the Lord, but Baal was 450 prophets. Let them prepare a sacrifice, and I will do the same. We will not light the fire. They will call all Baal, and I will call on the Lord, and the one who answers with fire, let him be God." Then the people agreed to the contest. Elijah stood by as the prophets of Baal prepared their sacrifice and called on their God from morning until noon. The prophets leaped and danced, "O Baal, hear us!" But there was no answer from Baal. At noon, Elijah mocked the prophets. "Cry louder! Maybe Baal is talking or on a way a journey. Maybe he's asleep and needs to be woken." The prophets of Baal cried louder than ever, leaping around in a wild frenzy begging their God to answer. They even cut themselves with knives that Baal might take pity on them. The people watched, but Baal did not answer. Elijah then called the people near him as he prepared his sacrifice. First, Elijah took 12 stones and rebuilt a broken altar of the Lord. The people watched as Elijah came to the altar and prayed, "Lord God of Israel, let it be known today that you are God, and I am your servant who has done all these things at your command. Hear me, O Lord, so that these people will know that you are the Lord God and turn back to you." Suddenly the fire of the Lord fell. The altar, the sacrifice, the water, even the dust of the ground was consumed by the fire. Only then did Elijah begin to think about the rain. He went up to the top of the Mount Carmel and fell on the ground to pray. Then he told his servants to go and look out to sea for a rain cloud. The servant reported there was nothing. Elijah kept praying and sent the servant 7 times to look for the rain. The 7th time, the servant reported there was a small cloud the size of a man's hands rising out of the sea. Elijah sent his servant to King Ahab to tell him the rain was coming. The people had repented and turned back to God, and the Lord blessed them with rain and food once more.
Hanggang dito na lang muna ang ating story, mga bata. Itutuloy natin ito sa susunod na Sunday. At dyan, tayo ay manalangin. Panginoon Diyos, marami pong salamat sa naging buhay po ni Elijah na nalaman po namin ito. Nawa Lord, na matuto rin po kaming sumunod sa inyong mga salita na magawa po namin ito ng tama. Ito po ang aming dalangin sa pangalan ni Jesus. Amen. Hanggang sa ating muling pagkikita, mga bata. Paalam!